I'm now 50 years old, and I started becoming deeply interested in spirituality when I was a teenager, reading books by Alan Watts and Hermann Hesse. And for a long time, I would say in the beginning, I was a seeker, and I wanted to learn and understand. And I still want to learn more and understand more. But I think the big shift is that I know that inside of me, in my own experience, in the breath, in the felt sensations of the body, in the way that there is an openness in the back of the body, in the top of the head, and the bottom of the feet, that there's actually open portals inside of me that can receive absolutely everything I need in any given moment. Whatever instructions are needed, whatever solace is needed. And so, yes, I'm as passionate about learning and growing and expanding to deeper and deeper levels, greater and greater heights, more and more dimensions. But there's also a self-sufficiency that I think has emerged. I think that this is a result of opening, actually, the inner channels of the body. And in opening the inner passageways of the body, there's a sense of being part of everything and not needing something external to feed me because I'm already in a web of connection with all of life. And so because those inner channels have opened to enough of a degree, there's access. There's access to great creative intelligence pouring through. I certainly feel pain and I suffer. And that pain and suffering happens in a space. And sometimes that space is so profound that the pain and suffering dissolve. And sometimes I'm stuck. I find myself stuck in the pain and suffering. And it takes a loving friend to touch me on the shoulder and look in my eyes. And suddenly I remember. And it pops. And that loving friend is like a messenger coming to remind me of what I know and what I've forgotten. For me, there's a recognition of not two, not one, both one and two in all experience. So any experience can't be reduced to its absolute ground or reduced to its relative separation. There's an embrace, the both one and two, and a relaxation about that, that they are interpenetrating the both one and the two, and a relaxation in that. In my own experience, I need to spend time resting in what we could call the ground of being, and I need to spend time in relationship, working with an organizational consultant, working with a therapist, working with my friends to actually develop and grow and discover, and that they work together beautifully and perfectly, and I need both. I I don't particularly identify with being a Buddhist. Early on, if I identified with anything, it was being a meditator. And I don't particularly identify anymore with really being a meditator in a very strict sense of the word. What I could say is that I value resting in space. And if you want to call that meditation, which one could, then okay, that's something I really value. But I don't particularly identify with being a Buddhist because that's a religious form. And for me, it's always been about something much more direct and naked and stripped down than that. The teacher that I've been studying with for the past 11 years is Reggie Ray. He is a teacher who's carrying on the lineage of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who's a great Tibetan Buddhist master. But Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche was also an incredible pioneer who took off his monastic robes and when he came to the West put on business suits and dressed like Westerners and didn't say that Tibetan Buddhism needed to be taught or communicated in the way that it was previously, but instead he dealt exactly with the situation as it presented himself in working with Western students. So for me, what's actually important is not Buddhism, but something that we could call natural human spirituality, that native to us as human beings, the more that we're able to rest in being, the more that there's something that flowers in us, which is really life itself expressing itself creatively and uniquely through us for the benefit of other people. So that's what interests me, not Buddhism, and not even anything that we're going to call a something, even natural human spirituality, but this process of opening, relaxing, and trusting the life force to move through us for the benefit of others. In my work with Sounds True and in this podcast that I host called Insights at the Edge, I've had the chance to interview a couple hundred different spiritual teachers at this point. And not just spiritual teachers, poets and healers and yogis. And one of the things that I've discovered is that no tradition, no path, and no pathless path has a corner on realization. I have met incredibly awake, incredibly alive, incredibly beneficial and creative people on so many different paths and on no path at all. And what that has shown me is it's actually about the person, not the path and not the pathless path. It's about the human heart. And our human hearts can be initiated and awakened through so many different things. Through a human teacher, through practices, through nature, through bankruptcy, through illness, through torture, through falling in love, and in a person who is really committed both to the truth of what's happening to them and a kind of selfless service, a kind of giving. Then a type of realization can pour through them that expresses itself in a unique way. And that's what I've seen, that's what I've witnessed. Well, in my own experience with meditation, I was trained to meditate in such a way that I wasn't really connecting to what you might call the inner body, the inner flows throughout the body. I was working with an object of meditation, returning to that object of meditation, and at a certain point, when I met the teacher Reggie Ray that I've been studying with for the past 11 years, he said to me, your practice, after I described it to him, is smaller than you. You're so much bigger than your practice. And have you ever worked with space? And I was like, no one ever trained me how to work with space. And he offered some instructions that allowed me to rest and relax and expand and then drop all technique. And from that, what happened was that the inner body started opening in my meditation practice. And I was no longer meditating like trying to stick with a mindful object of attention. There is a way of being where the inner circuitry in the body was open. And what I discovered in that really was a sense of a gut, belly openness, a heart openness, and an openness also in the center of the head, all in the subtle anatomy. And in the Taoist tradition, you could call this the three dantians, the lower dantian, the middle dantian, and the upper dantian. And I point this out because when there is a sense of openness and activation in the subtle body, and there's a flow all the way from the earth up into the central channel of the body with these three centers being open, and a sense of heaven also coming in through the body, through this subtle anatomy, then there's this connection where the human being is resting between heaven and earth. And for me, this has been an evolution in my own practice, where there isn't a sense more of a practitioner practicing meditation, but there's a sense of a flow of earth and heaven energy meeting in the heart. And then the heart expands and connects and gives, and really is the most powerful field that I've ever touched in my own being that can connect with other people. And so the meditation practice becomes one of connecting to the earth, receiving heaven, and expressing through the heart. When non-duality is interpreted as absolutism in any way, I think that is a misunderstanding. And what I mean by absolutism is because we're connected to everything, because there's a oneness, there's a brush that comes that says everything's always absolute. And there is a covering over of our individuality, our uniqueness, which is not the same as declaring we're separate. We're not separate, we're connected. We're connected through mirror neurons, through so much. I feel what other people are feeling. I know I'm connected. I'm connected to the colors in the room, the lights in the room, the sounds in the room. I am connected. But I'm not also just one with everything. There's also something in me that's unique, that's personal. You could call it an essence, a fragrance. And I think it's a mistake to wipe that out. I think we need to honor that. And so non-dual reality as absolutism, I think, is a mistake. When non-duality is understood as both one and two, and embrace that includes both, then I think we have something. I'll be honest with you that I feel close to indigenous people. People who walk on the earth and who lived at a time where there was no scientific inquiry such as we know it today. And I think that by connecting with the felt sense of being, the sky, the trees, the mountains, the smells of nature, the way that an indigenous person would have done, can teach us so much about being and about being spiritual beings. So what can science do to help us? If it helps prove that to people, if it helps provide evidence, if someone can get up in a white lab coat with screens on TV and show people that the indigenous way of being makes us kinder, softer, gentler, sweeter, happier, more generous, more fulfilled, more real, more connected to each other and our babies It's a better way to educate people. I am so happy about that. So I think if science can hold up what indigenous people knew, what a fabulous contribution. We can see photos from a Hubble telescope and it can blow our mind and connect us to the mystery. Or we can go out into nature, someplace where there's no artificial light, and we can lie down on the ground and look at the sky, and it can blow our mind and connect us to mystery. Yes, let us connect to mystery.